I decided I'd try and share some of my insight on the 6 featured champs, on what I like in them, what I don't like in them, and how good I think they'll be for the game as we get to play them a lot more. And I'll release this on the day of the feature dropping or the day after, so a lot of people can see if the champ they picked up is, in my opinion, good in some places or bad in some other places, or just general stuff about them. So, to start, we have Sandman, who, in my opinion, is by far the worst of the 6. I think he's a 3 in Battlegrounds. He's very meta-dependent because his best strength is heal reversing, and he had that one meta where there was healing nodes, and he was really good for that. But any meta where there's healing nodes or Purify, which recently there have been a lot of Purify nodes. We have Ebb and Flow Knockdown right now. We had Masochism just recently. He's not going to be a good Battlegrounds attacker. However, just to put it out there, he's getting rebalanced, and we know that he is getting a damage tune-up in some way. So, that could be something right there. So, don't be depressed if you pull Sandman just yet, because I think he could be quite good later. As far as War attack goes, I do see some potential in this guy because of how valuable it is to be a utility champ in War. In War, stuff like his Petrify, his Decelerate, those could be very interesting utilities to have. And he has triple immunities. He has Bleed immunity, Poison immunity, and Shock immunity, which could counter some nodes in War. I think this guy has some decent potential in War attack now, and even more when he gets buffed. As far as Everest content that goes, not at all at the moment. Everest content meaning like Abyss or Labyrinth and stuff like that. Honestly, it could be lower than a 4. I don't see him doing really anything there. On defense, even worse, because he's going to be willpower healing you most of the time, and his specials aren't really that hard to avoid. He's going to be a bit of a potato on defense, which is a bit of a shame. I feel like he should be a lot harder considering you're punching sand, but whatever. It is what it is. Lastly, the end game questing section, which is mainly on Eternity of Pain, or even to an extent Act 8 health pools, and I think he'll be decent for that. Eternity of Pain more so. I don't think he's going to be great in Act 8. I don't really think he's going to do much there. But I do think, if we ever get Eternity of Pain 2 or something along the lines of those health pools again, he could do some interesting stuff just because of his utility kit. But I am very skeptical of what he can do now as he is, so I think I'm just going to leave him at a 4 for that. His notable matchups where his utility shines are Doom, because Petrify shuts down Aura, Absman, because the Petrify really helps to ignore that healing that's so annoying with him, Man-Thing, because he's poison immune and doesn't rely on critting, and Rintrah, mainly because of his resistance up, giving him a little bit of rupture resistance, as well as the Decelerate, making you able to hit him in the corner a lot more. So, I think he's going to be pretty good in all of those matchups, just lacking quite a bit in damage, even with the Petrify being a decent benefit. Moondragon, who, while I think is the second worst champ in this featured crystal, is talked about a lot less than she should be. She is quite a good nuke in Battlegrounds, and that is something that is quite common in the skill class, but she does fit perfectly in the skill class with that nuke stuff, and her kit is pretty interesting as she counters evade, and is kind of interesting of how she works when she's bled, poisoned, power stinged, or something else. I can't remember what the other thing is, but she takes massive advantage if one of those things is active on her, and this makes her really good against Scorpion, for example, who I didn't put in the notable matchups, but she is very good for Scorpion. She also has a pretty okay Purify mechanic. When she enters her damage mode, she purifies all debuffs, if I remember correctly, which can be quite useful sometimes. So I think in Battlegrounds, because of her speed, she is going to get an 8. However, with the skill class being what it is in Battlegrounds, she might not be the first skill champ you want to take up, but she can put a lot of work in that game mode. War Attack, I'm giving a 6 because I don't think she has utility that really fits War very well. The ability to have resistances to the said Bleed, Poison, Power Sting, and stuff like that is kind of cool, especially with it fueling her damage. But I don't know if it's going to be... what I'm saying is it might be too niche for War. And, which it is a little frustrating, but I don't see her being that great in War. Again, the evade counter is cool, could be useful in War. Another thing about War, though, is she does have a rather stressful playstyle. You want to intercept or sometimes hit into the block. If the AI doesn't want to cooperate, you're kind of screwed, and the AI can screw you over in ways of just taking hits as well, not even just, like, uncooperative. But she could still do some War stuff. Granted, I haven't seen War fights of any of these champs except Sandman, actually, but, I mean, realistically, most people don't have War stuff out, and these are my predictions anyway. Everest content, I feel like she's more of a short fight champion. I don't think she's going to do much there. Defense, I find her relatively easy to fight. And endgame questing, you know, maybe a little bit better than Everest content, but I don't see her putting too much work there, while she still could do some cheesy stuff down the road. She fights Thing very well because she doesn't necessarily counter Unstoppable, but she does do a great job of bypassing protection. And you can get like 50-second Thing fights if you play the fight well, which if you're playing Moondragon, you're usually a skilled player because she is a high skill kind of champion. Quicksilver, the evade counter is great, the Purify is decent. Cassie, basically the same thing. Man-Thing, she has poison resistance and gets her damage increased, or rather her ramp up shortened by the poison being on her, and I think she's going to be quite decent for Man-Thing. Adam Warlock is incredible. This guy has so much damage packed into short fights and damage that works really well in Everest and Endgame as well. It's not just a short fight kind of damage rotation. He can do really good stuff in pretty much every game mode. I'm giving him a 9 in Battlegrounds because he's a Cosmic champ. Cosmics like to nuke, much like I said about the skill class and Moondragon. He is going to be very fast in Battlegrounds, along the lines of Hulkling, maybe a little slower, maybe a little faster. I want to test him myself to figure that out. As far as War Attack goes, I think he's going to be great because of his speed and his relatively unstressful playstyle. He doesn't have the biggest utility kit, but your Stasis Pod can save you quite a bit of times. Same thing as in Battlegrounds, that Stasis Pod would be very nice to have. As far as Everest content goes, I think he's going to be a 9. I'm not sure if you'd want to use him over classic Everest champions, but we'll see. I still think he could do quite a bit of work there. Maybe I could lower that 9 down to a 7 or an 8, but I still think that he has potential to be great in Everest. Defense, I really don't find him that stressful to fight. The Stasis Pod you really just need to watch out for, and it's usually pretty avoidable. The SP1 is an easy dex, the SP2 is an easy dex. You just have to make sure to not get hit by the Stasis Pod. The Unblockable, rather, usually never happens on defense, so that's not a big deal. Anyway, I just think he's going to get clobbered by Mystics on defense most of the time, but he can screw you up if you're not paying attention. Endgame questing, I think this guy's going to be incredible for if there's an EOP2, and for Act 8 shenanigans. And I think 8.3 is going to have like a tech-style boss. I'm not going to try to go into too many details of the leaks I've read, but I think he could be potentially really good for that. His notable matchups, I think, are Penny, because if you're unblockable all the time, you're never going to get auto-blocked and you're never going to get power burned. Warlock, because Warlock's main goal is to infect you, which will hurt your damage and your ability accuracy, or I mean, you'll take damage and lose ability accuracy. But if you have enough unique buffs, then the infection will be very shortened or just not happen at all. MODOK, the same as Penny, really, and same with Captain Sam. He's going to destroy those auto blockers just because of how strong his unblockable ability works. Danny Moonstar, the first mutant to enter MCoC in 15 months, had to be impressive. And I think she is. I think she's going to be a very solid champion. I'm giving her an 8 in Battlegrounds because I think she is going to make very quick work of pretty much every skill champion out there. You see, I have Nick, Korg, KP, and just the skill class in general as her notable matchups, because I think she counters most of the stuff that they like to throw at you on defense. Korg, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful for, because she doesn't have energy basic attacks, but if you are careful and you can use that falter correctly, he's going to be usually a breeze. War attack, I think she's going to have a pretty decent use in, mainly for the same reasons as I've said for Battlegrounds. She just counters the skill class quite well, and she can make quick work of most skill champs out there. For Everest content, I'm giving a 4 out of 10 because I think that she is going to be basically the same situation as Moondragon, where she's got more so a quick fight damage rotation, and you don't really want to use that in longer fights. As far as defense goes, the falter isn't going to hit you too often, and it's not going to be really anything to be risky for. The SP2 is a dex that you have to practice, and you really don't want to block it. But I think she's going to be relatively easy to dex that SP2, same with the SP1, with just a little bit of practice. It's not that hard a dex, but something you need to get used to. Endgame questing, I do think she could be quite good for EOP2 if that ever comes out. And Act 8, I think she could be very well in both of those areas. As I said, her damage is mainly for short fights, but I still think she could do some decent work in the endgame style quests, which again, I've mentioned Act 8, and if Eternity of Pain 2 ever was a thing, I think she could take that quite well. Lady Deathstrike. The tech class has been ridiculous this year. Phantoman is insane. Viv is getting a buff, and she's still pretty good now. Shocker is also getting a buff, and he's still pretty decent now. And Lady Deathstrike is crazy. Like, she's better than pre-buff Viv and Shocker for sure. She's going to be a 7 in Battlegrounds, as I think her damage shines a little bit more if you can get slightly higher health pools, but does a great job now. You're usually going to have fights end in between 50 and 80 seconds, which is pretty average for a tech champ. That's really fine. She has crazy utility for some of the top mutant defenders, like Weapon X, where you can't go unstoppable, Domino, where she can't lower your ability accuracy, Havoc, where you will not get plasma detonated, and Toad, because she has poison resistance and heal block. She is crazy at countering the biggest problems that mutants like to throw at you. And because of the fact that I think she is going to counter the biggest problems that mutants will throw at you, I am giving her a war attack of 9. This is the highest war attack rating I will give out of the 6 champions here, and this is helped a lot by the fact that Nimrod is always banned, Omega Sentinel is frequently banned, Future Ant-Man is frequently banned, a bunch of other tech champs are frequently banned, and I think she's going to do a good job with those tech champs being gone and be a very prominent attacker, because I think she does what most of those champs do, a little bit slower than they would normally, but just as effectively. As far as Everest content goes, she is ridiculous for Labyrinth-style fights. She is absolutely crazy. The damage from those ruptures just pops off when you can stack Torments with that SP1 and give her enough time. On defense, I think she's a 6. There really are no big defensive threats in this featured pool, which is a bit of a shame, but I think she's going to do a better job than pretty much all of the other 6 on defense. Maybe Adam to go along with her for a tie on best defender in this crystal. And I think her SP1 can screw you over a little bit. It is honestly trickier than you'd expect, because sometimes you dash away too early and that first hit somehow hits you. At least it does for me sometimes, and then you take a bunch of rupture damage. It really sucks, but it is avoidable, especially if you just block it. Like, I don't think she's going to be that hard, but she's better than the other champs on this list, I think, defensive-wise. As far as endgame questing, I think she'll have the same popularity as she will in Everest content, or prominence, I should say, instead of popularity. If EOP2 comes out, I've said that like 6 times already, she's going to be great for it. Act 8, she's going to be great for it. I already know. I already can tell. I think she's going to be very good for most of the path health pools. And as far as their notable matchups go, again, I already mentioned a bunch of them earlier, but I think just the entire mutant class in general, she's going to shut down because of how thick her utility kit is. It's really impressive, the amount of utility packed into this one champion, which, granted, is a big tech trope, but she is one of the best at having a big tech utility kit, in my opinion. Lastly, my favorite, and who I think is the best featured in this pool, is Silk. Silk is ridiculous. She's the one of the 6 that I have had time to test myself as I grinded Arena for a 5-star because I knew I would want to play this champion, and she did not let me down. Battlegrounds 9. Her damage is insane. She has utility, much like Lady Deathstrike has ridiculous utility to counter almost the entirety of the Mutant class. She has the ridiculous utility to counter almost the entirety of the Mystic class. If you slap a relic on her, she's going to kill incredibly quick. Maybe not so much this meta because the Purify is a little frustrating, but she is going to be crazy for it in the upcoming metas, I suspect. Everest content, a 6. I don't think she's going to be that great for Everest, mainly for the same reason of Moondragon and Danny, because I think they have more short fight rotations. However, I think she's going to be better in endgame than Danny and Moondragon because of the way her damage functions. I think she'll have a lot more success there than those other 2. As far as defense goes, if you have a champ that can crit, she's going to be really easy to fight because her only defensive trope really is the special attack evade. She does have a pretty decent sized health pool, especially for a Spider-Verse champion. It's actually very high, which can mean she can take a little bit of time to take down, but I think the prominence of skill nukes will really make that irrelevant. If you get hit by her and she plays as physical vulnerabilities, she could stun you through the block with her heavy charge, which is frustrating, but again, don't get hit, and she's pretty easy to not get hit by, to be honest. Yeah, she's really not going to do much on defense, but I think better than some of the other champs in this pool. As far as her notable matchups go, Rintrah, because the slow and the awaken ability shuts him down, and she has 90% less rupture duration on herself. Mangog, for the same reason, the slow is incredible. Doom, because the slow is incredible. Also, I forgot to mention, for both Rintrah and Doom, the Sunder on her SP2 will give her even higher damage because it removes their crit resistance and allows her and her alone, or the other champs with Sunder, which are like 3 other champs, to be able to crit him much easier. And I think that is such an underrated ability, especially for a Science champion, removing that crit resist. And I have the Mystic class there in general because I think her kit is stacked for almost every Mystic defender. You have a video that you can check out that I've made on her countering like 7 different Mystics that are very prominent in Battlegrounds defense and just toying with them on defense. So anyway, that is my opinion or opinions on the 6 featured champs that just came out today or maybe tomorrow. I don't know exactly when I'm posting this. But thank you for watching, and I hope you all have very successful polls. I hope this video was educational and you know the strengths and weaknesses of all the 6 featured champions. And please leave a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you for watching.